Hi, my name is Matt Kendricks. I'm the project founder for dSIPRouter. Today, we'll be talking through the dSIPRouter API. So the API will allow you to automate dSIPRouter deployments or help you build applications on top of dSIPRouter. So before we get started, go ahead and click the subscribe button, and that way we'll notify you of new video content that we create. Also, if you really enjoy this video, go ahead and smash the like button as well. So, all right. So now that we got that all out of the way, let's go ahead and start talking about our API. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and share my screen, and then we can get started. So okay, so now let's go ahead and look at the dSIPRouter API. We ship it as a Postman collection. So you actually can go to Postman. So for those who's not familiar with Postman, is a very popular tool for testing out your APIs. And they actually have what's called a public network. So you can register your API with Postman, and it makes it available for others to use. So that's what we're going to use today. So let's go ahead and locate our API. So for some reason, it's you have to put in the open source, which is our parent company that creates dSIPRouter, and then underneath that, you will find our collection. We really actually want our collection just to be found if we put in dSIPRouter API, but or just dSIPRouter. So if you know how to do that, put some comments on the in the notes there. So okay, so if I click on here, I actually have endpoint groups, Camilio, inbound mapping, media server, leases, carrier groups, auth, CDR. These are all APIs that's available for use inside of dSIPRouter. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we won't be able to change this because we are not able to, because we are not we haven't forked this particular API here or collection. So Postman works very similar to how Git and GitHub works, is where we need to actually fork this collection in order to start making some changes. And we're not necessarily going to change the structural layout of the API, but we do need to be able to change the actual API token that we're going to use to be able to authenticate. We also need to change the host name or IP address of where our server is located, and we need to be able to change the parameters. So what we need to do is fork it. Okay. So now it's going to ask me to create an account or sign in, because right now we're just anonymous, basically going and looking at the Postman site. So I'm going to sign in. I have an account with Postman, and you can sign up for an account for free. All right, so now that I'm signed in, I can go over and actually fork it. And I'm just going to call it, yes, this is dSIPRouter API test. All right, so now that I've forked it, now I can make the changes I need. I can change the bear token. So I have a dSIPRouter instance here, which I need to re-authenticate into. So I'm just going to grab the password here. It's a test system, so I don't care if you guys have the password. I'm going to destroy it after this. And so right now we have a endpoint group set up. We have the default outbound route, which sends all calls to SkyTel. And we have some default carrier. So this is pretty much a default config. So the first thing we were going to want to do here is kind of set the scenario up. So the very common use case for using the API is situations where you are a actual um, you are a trunk provider for a set of free PBX systems. Either internally, you have a decent router instances that serve up a set of PBXs, or let's say you're providing hosting capability or SIP trunking services to a set of PBXs. In any case, you need to have the PBX authenticate itself to dSIPRouter. And there's two ways you can do that. One is by IP off, or you can use username and password. So in this scenario here, we're going to set it up so that that a particular uh, a new PBX is coming online, is being onboarded, and typically what you would do, you would go and put the IP into dSIPRouter, right? And if you want to do this at scale, or if you want to automate this, the best thing to do is to use the API, so that when the new PBX is onboarded, it automatically adds the IP address to dSIPRouter, and then it can start routing calls to dSIPRouter, and dSIPRouter can then route it out to your carrier. Okay, so that's our scenario. That's the one we're going to do for right now. All right, so okay, so first thing we need to do is let's go ahead and change the IP address of the actual where we'll be sending the request to. So right now is a variable defined in the actual collection dsip underscore addr. We're going to grab the IP address of this server. Go. Okay. And then from there, we're going to actually put the token. So I have the token. So now you can get the token either when you did the original install the dSIPRouter, you copied the token, or you can reset the API token if you need to. All right. So, okay, both of those are set now. And the other thing that typically, okay, cool. All right, so good. It has all of those. So that looks good. Sorry, variables is good. All right. So let's go ahead and test this by doing I think one thing I always forget to do inside of Postman is click save. So if you don't click save, it doesn't actually change these or update these values. So for example, if I do a get here, right? So you see the format here, we're actually dsip address here is the initial variable is demo, the current is demo.dsip.net. You can tell that it did not take that particular change. So if you actually try and run this right now, it is not going to work. It's going to come back and say unauthorized type of deal. All right. So right now, this collection by default goes against our demo system. Okay. So our demo system is always up. So we set it up so that if somebody wanted to play with our API without having a dSIPRouter instance installed, they could do that because we basically ship the collection with the IP address or host name of the demo system and the demo system API token, right? So just to clarify, if you wanted to test out our API without having a dSIPRouter instance installed on your own, you could do so by just using the default collection without making any changes, because it'll work. But in our case, we have a dSIPRouter instance that I've already installed. We've already set it up so that that it points to this IP address and with this particular token. The one thing we forgot to do is save. All right. So now that we saved it, we can go to our the get API endpoint for endpoints, and you'll see now that it actually has the correct IP address. Okay. So now we actually can do a send. And what you'll see is this is a get. This is basically going to get all of the endpoint groups that's in dSIPRouter. As we talked about before, there's only one, right? So gateway group ID is 16. The gateway group list is 64. Okay. So So which is cool. So what it's basically telling you is that um, the gateway group that this thing is a part of is 16, and then um, you have a gateway group list which contains in this case a PBX, and it actually has 64 as the actual PBX ID, and that's the gateway list. So if you have multiple endpoints that are part of a endpoint group, then you will have multiple numeric values here for the gateway list. Because basically, the gateway list is just the unique identifier or the ID of the PBX that's part of that list. Okay, so that's kind of that. And let's go a little bit further here, and let's look at this a little bit more. Um, I'm just going to extend this a little bit here. So now, if you want to get the details of a particular gateway group, right? Right. So in this case, the gateway list was 16, or the endpoint group, sorry, name or ID was 16. So I'm going to send that over. And what that's going to do is give us the details of that particular endpoint group, right? So you can see that the auth type is IP. The call limit is set to 5 because that seems to be what we actually set it to. And then you can actually see the endpoints, and you can see the name of it, the ID of it, which is 64, the host name, if it's in maintenance mode or wait, and what's the weight of it. And weight is actually used if you wanted to be able to have multiple of these and you wanted to be able to distribute load to it. Not for the inbound use case, which is what we're about to do, but let's say you have a inbound call coming in and you wanted to be able to distribute it to multiple endpoints. That's what that weight is for. And that's it. We don't have it set up for any of the other stuff but name and gateway group ID. So this is the details of an endpoint group. Okay. So all right, so let's go ahead and um let's go ahead and go through our use case, which is we're going to create a new endpoint group for a new PBX that's being added to dSIPRouter. Okay. So we also ship the body of the message for the API, right? So you don't have to kind of guess that on your own. You can just kind of manipulate it. We're going to change this to new PBX 101. So this will be the new PBX being um, added to the system. Let's just say you want them to have a call limit of 30 calls at any from a concurrency perspective. Um, let's say that the IP address of the PBX is this. We'll use my soft phone to act as the PBX. So let me just grab, what is my IP address? What is my IP? That is my IP. So there it is. Okay. And this is the description. I'm just going to call it new PBX 101. Perfect. All right. So now that we have this PBX defined, we'll go ahead and add it to the system here. So we'll go ahead and do a send. It's going to return the endpoint that was created and the gateway group. So we created a new gateway group and IP. So let's go take a look at what that looks like from our environment. I think that's not our right one. This is the one we want here. Let me go ahead and look at endpoint groups. So now we have new PBX, and now we have the endpoint here. And just for giggles, I had an old reload here and it didn't reload. And by the way, um, you can actually have it automatically. You can actually reload after this is done. And I probably should have done that just for you to see what that kind of looks like. So there's an actual API called reload, and you actually could just send that. Oh, I just did a reload, so it's not gonna do. Let's wait a couple seconds here, and then we'll do a reload here. Basically, there's a module inside of Chameleon that we use that keeps track of how often you reload, and it won't let you reload if you just immediately if you already just did a reload. Okay, so let's go ahead and do it again. All right, so here goes. Camelio reload succeeded. So that's great. So basically, just saying, do you need a reload? Nope, you don't need a reload. It's it just actually reloaded here. So basically our workflow is that we use this API here to create a SIP trunk. Then we did a reload on dSIPRouter. I obviously I logged in and I did my own reload before running that reload. But for you, if you're running this API and wanting to build this out or automate this, you would basically trigger two APIs in order to automate the provisioning of a new PBX. Okay. So, all right. So now this is done. Is reloaded. So let's go ahead and send a call to this instance. Now it's not going to go through because we don't have a instance of. Let me make sure I'm on this box. We don't have the SIP carrier. I haven't updated the SIP carrier, but that doesn't really matter for what we're trying to do here. We just want to show that the call is actually can go through. So let's go ahead and open up my Zapier. Okay. And let's see, testing dsub. So we're not going to register. And we're just going to send calls to it. All right. So let's go here. And we're just going to send calls. I'm just going to put in the IP address here. 8. All right, so this is the domain that we're going to send calls to. Calls are going to come from here, and I'm going to change this. I think it was this. I think it was this testing dsub. Yep, that's where I was. Okay. So now I'm just going to call. Which is my caller ID as well. So my caller ID, and then I'm just calling our office number here. So I'm gonna give it a try here. All right. So we can see this is the number that I just tried. This is our client here. This is the dSIPRouter box, and this is SkyTel, which is our default trunking provider that ships out of the box right now. But we haven't set up this particular instance of dSIPRouter to authenticate. But you can tell call came in, and then it's being sent out. Okay, so we're using IP off for that. So if I wanted to just to prove this out a little bit, let's just say now I wanted to remove that particular endpoint group, right? Which is 16. Okay. So let's go do that and do a send. Okay. And now it's saying, hey, I need a cam reload, which is true. So let's go over to our reload and let's go send a reload. Okay. Reload was successful. So now let's go ahead and clear it. And let's go ahead and try another call here. Oh, well, So let's go do another. This would be more clear if we do it this way. All right. And so let's do another call. 1-888-907-2085. Okay. And let's go here. So what's happening here is that oh, I killed the wrong. I see what happened here. I'm like, why is that still working? All right. So what happened here is that I actually removed the wrong endpoint group. I should have removed 17. All right. So I'll remove 17. And then we should not be able to see this. So let me send this here. All right. And then let's do a reload again. All right. So now let's try this again. Let's do F5 and let's try and place that call one more time. All right, so immediately it came back, call ended. So now we have removed that particular gateway group. So now you're getting our proxy authenticate, right? So basically it's like, I don't know who you are. IP address isn't in there. So anyway, that was a quick example of how to actually use the dSIPRouter API in order to automate the provisioning or onboarding of a PBX into dSIPRouter, and how to deprovision that particular endpoint by using the APIs. So thank you for watching this video. If you really enjoyed this video, please smash the like button. Okay, take care. Talk to you soon.